Good morning, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you signing in today, where we're continuing to read First Chronicles. But before we begin the next chapter, our prayer. As I read and receive your word, may it deeply be rooted in me, so when difficulty comes, it will be your word that encourages and strengthens me. Amen. So we're currently starting at chapter 18 today, David's military victories. After this, David subdued and humbled the Philistines by conquering Gath and its surrounding towns. David also conquered the land of Moab, and the Moabites became David's subjects and brought him tribute money. Then David destroyed the forces of King Hadazer of Zobah, as far as Hamath. When Hadazer marched out to strengthen his control along the Euphrates River, David captured 1,000 chariots, 7,000 charioteers, and 20,000 foot soldiers. Then he crippled all but 100 of the chariot horses. When Arameans from Damascus arrived to help Hadazer, David killed 22,000 of them. Then he placed several army garrisons in Damascus, the Aramean capital. And the Arameans became David's subjects and brought him tribute money. So the Lord gave David victory wherever he went. David brought the gold shields of Hadazer's officers to Jerusalem, along with a large amount of bronze from Hadazer's cities of Tebah and Kun. Later, Solomon melted the bronze and used it for the temple. He molded it into the bronze, the pillars, and the various bronze utensils used at the temple. When King Toi of Hamath heard that David had destroyed the army of King Hadazer of Zobah, he sent his son Joram to congratulate David on his success. Hadazer and Toi had long been enemies, and there had been many wars between them. Jordan presented David with many gifts of gold, silver, and bronze. King David dedicated all these gifts to the Lord, along with the silver and gold he had taken from the other nations he had subdued: Edom, Moab, Ammon, and Philistia, and Amalek. Abishai, son of Zeruiah, destroyed 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of the Salt. He placed army garrisons throughout Edom, and all the Edomites became David's subjects. There was another example of how the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. David reigned over all Israel and was fair to everyone. Joab, son of Zeruiah, was commander of the army. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was the royal historian. Zadok, son of Ahitub, and Amalek, son of Abiathar, were the priests. Sariah was the court secretary. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was captain of the king's bodyguard. David's son served as the king's chief assistants. Chapter 19. David defeats the Ammonites. Sometime after this, King Nahash of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun became king. David said, "I am going to show complete loyalty to Hanun, because his father Nahash was always completely loyal to me." So David sent ambassadors to express sympathy to Hanun about his father's death. But when David's ambassadors arrived in the land of Ammon, Hanun's advisor said to him, "Do you really think these men are coming here to honor your father?" "No, David has sent them to spy out the land so that they can come in and conquer it." So Hanun saved David's ambassadors and shaved their beards, cut off their robes at the buttocks, and sent them back to David in shame. When David heard what happened, he sent messengers to tell the men to stay at Jericho until their beards grew out, for they were very embarrassed by their appearance. Now the people of Ammon realized how seriously they had angered David, so Hanun and the Ammonites sent 38 tons of silver to hire chariots and troops from Aram Naharaim, Aram, Makkah, and Zobah. They also hired 32,000 chariots and secured the support of the king of Makkah and his army. These forces camped at Medeba, where they were joined by the Ammonite troops from Hanun that Hanun had recruited from his own towns. When David heard about this, he sent Joab and all his warriors to fight them. The Ammonite troops drew up their battle lines at the gate of the city, while the other kings positioned themselves to fight in the open fields. When Joab saw that he would have to fight on two fronts, he chose the best troops in his army. He placed them under his personal command and led them out to fight the Arameans in the fields. He left the rest of the army under the command of his brother Abishai, who was to attack the Ammonites. "If the Arameans are too strong for me, then come over and help me," Joab told his brother. "And if the Ammonites are too strong for you, I will help you. Be courageous, let us fight bravely to save our people and the cities of our God. May the Lord's will be done." When Joab and his troops attacked, the Arameans began to run away. And when the Ammonites saw the Arameans running, they ran from the Abishai and retreated into the city. Then Joab returned to Jerusalem. The Arameans now realized that they were no match for Israel, so they summoned additional Aramean troops from the other side of the Euphrates River. These troops arrived under the command of Shobach, the commander of all Hadazer's forces. When David heard what was happening, he mobilized all Israel, crossed the Jordan River, and positioned his troops in battle formation. Then he engaged the enemy troops in battle, and they fought against him. But again the Arameans fled from the Israelites. This time David's forces killed 7,000 charioteers and 40,000 foot soldiers, including Shobach, the commander of their army. When the servants of Hadazer realized that they had been defeated by Israel, they surrendered to David and became his subjects. After that, the Arameans were no longer willing to help the Ammonites. Chapter 20, the Capture of Rabba. The following spring, the time of year when kings go to war, Joab led the Israelite army in successful attacks against the towns and villages of the Ammonites. In the process, they laid siege to the city of Rabbah and destroyed it. But David had stayed up behind in Jerusalem. When David arrived in Rabbah, he removed the crown from the king's head, and it was placed on David's own head. This crown was made of gold and set with gems. It weighed about 75 pounds. David took a vast amount of plunder from the city. He also made slaves of the people of Rabbah and forced them to labor with saws, picks, and axes. This is how he dealt with people of all the Ammonite cities. Then David and his army returned to Jerusalem. Battle against the Philistines. After this, war broke out with the Philistines at Gezer. As they fought, Zebekiah from Husha killed Saph, a descendant of the giants. And so the Philistines were subdued. During another battle with the Philistines, Elhanan, son of Jair, killed Lami, the brother of Goliath of Gath. The handle of Lami's spear was as thick as the weaver's beam. In other battles with Philistines at Gath, a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, a descendant of the giants, defied and taunted Israel, but he was killed by Jonathan, the son of David's brother Shimea. These Philistines were descendants of the giants of Gath, but they were killed by David and his warriors. David takes the census. Chapter 21. Satan rose up against Israel and caused David to take a census of the Israelites. David gave these orders to Joab and his commanders. Take a census of all the people in the land, from Beersheba in the south to Dan in the north, and bring me the totals so that I may know how many there are. But Joab replied, May the Lord increase the number of his people 100 times over. But why, my lord, do you want to do this? Are they not all your servants? Why must you cause Israel to sin? But the king insisted that Joab take the census. So Joab traveled throughout Israel to count the people. Then he returned to Jerusalem and reported the number of people to David. There were 1,100,000 men of military age in Israel and 470,000 in Judah. But Joab did not include the tribes of Levi and Benjamin in the census because he was so distressed at what the king made him do. Judgment for David's sin. God was very displeased with the census, and he punished Israel for it. Then David said to God, I have sinned greatly, and I shouldn't have taken the census. Please forgive me for doing this foolish thing. Then the Lord spoke to Gad, David's seer. This was the message. Go and say to David, this is what the Lord says. I will give you 3 choices. Choose one or of these punishments, and I will do it." So Gad came to David and said, "These are the choices the Lord has given you. You may choose 3 years of famine, 3 months of destruction of your enemies by your enemies, or 3 days of severe plague as the angel of the Lord brings devastation throughout the land of Israel. Think this over and let me know what the answer to give the Lord." "This is a desperate situation," David replied to Gad, "but let me fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is very great. Do not let me fall into human hands." So the Lord sent a plague upon Israel, and 70,000 people died as a result. And God sent an angel to destroy Jerusalem. But just as the angel was preparing to destroy it, the Lord relented and said to the death angel, "Stop, that is enough." At that moment, the angel of the Lord was standing by the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. David looked up and saw the angel of the Lord standing between heaven and the earth with his sword drawn, stretched out over Israel. So did David and the leaders of Israel put a sackcloth to show their distress and fell down with their faces to the ground. And David said to God, "I am the one who called for the census. I am the one who has sinned and done wrong. But these people are innocent. What have they done, O Lord my God? Let your anger fall against me and my family, but do not destroy your people." David builds an altar. Then the angel of the Lord told Gad to instruct David to build an altar to the Lord at the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So David obeyed the instructions the Lord had given him through the Gad. Araunah, who was busy threshing wheat at the time, turned and saw the angel there. His 4 sons who were with him ran away and hid. When Araunah saw the king approaching, he left his threshing floor and bowed to the ground before David. David said to Araunah, "Let me buy this threshing floor from you at its full price. Then I will build an altar to the Lord there, so that he will stop the plague." "Take it, my lord, and use it as you wish," Araunah said to David. Here are oxen for the burnt offerings, and you can use the threshing tools for wood to build a fire in your altar. And take the wheat for the grain offering, I will give it all to you." But the king replied to Araunah, "No, I insist on paying what it's worth. I cannot take what is yours and give it to the Lord. I will not offer a burnt offering that has cost me nothing." So David gave Araunah 600 pieces of gold in payment for the threshing floor. David built an altar there to the Lord and sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings. And when David prayed, the Lord answered him by sending the fire from heaven to burn up the offering on the altar. Then the Lord spoke to the angel who put the sword back into his sheath. When David saw the Lord had answered his prayer, he offered sacrifices there at Araunah's threshing floor. At that time, the tabernacle of the Lord had the altar that Moses made in the wilderness were located at the hill of Gibeon. But David was not able to go there to inquire of God, because he was terrified by the drawn sword of the angel of the Lord. Well, thank you for joining me today. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you have a great day and a blessed day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.